Hello, we're here to analyze a video from the World Economic Forum titled Putting Jobs Out of Work. The group members are Nesh, Emmanuel, myself, Owido Abasi, and Amen. We will be considering the future of jobs with the introduction of artificial intelligence. We'll also be looking at the individual identities within the society. We'll be looking at the requirements to survive in the job market. We'll be looking at the evolution of work, considering the transition from industrial to post-industrial era. And we'll be looking at common ideologies. We'll be applying three theoretical frameworks, which are work and employment, ideologies, identity. The panelists are Andy Siwa, Mary Flanagan, Yuval Harari, Ariel Hochschild, and CVK. Okay, the panelists discussed about the evolution of work, considering that in the early age, work started out as a means of survival, and the major things that were done were hunting and gathering of fruits. Then eventually work became more formal and well structured, and then it required skills. And now in recent times, or in the future, work is more knowledge based. Now we agree with what the panelists said, because according to Bells in 1973, he categorized work into three. He talked about the pre-industrial, the industrial, and the post-industrial eras of work. And then in the pre-industrial era of work, he said work was the major resource needed for work was land, and the major job descriptions were farming and hunting. Then in the industrial era, he said the major resources required would be machines, and the main workplaces would be businesses. In the post-industrial era, he forecasted that knowledge would be the major resource for work, and the major working places would be universities and research institutions. Now in Daniel Bell forecasted that there will be a disruption in the industrial society, and that the core of work will be centered on human services, education, and health services. Also, he discussed about a shift in the manufacturing industry, from the manufacturing to services. This is just basically saying that in the early age, more of manufacturing was done, but in recent times, the manufacturing of products are done mainly by machineries with supervision from humans, while humans are more based in the service sector of work. He also talked about the evolution of occupational characteristics. He said that there will be a decline in skilled and unskilled jobs, which would give way to more professional jobs. And in recent times, we have realized that manual labor has gradually decreased, while there's a rise in professional jobs such as doctors, lawyers, and so on. The panelists also discussed about future job losses to artificial intelligence, and they also talked about how this job losses, or the thought of these job losses, has created anxiety and fear in the society. Now, we agree with them once again, because according to our research, McKinsey in 2017 said that there is going to be job losses due to the introduction of artificial intelligence. And then the panelists also talked about self-reinvention as a solution to these job losses, and then also to help to cure the fear and anxiety. And we agree with them, because according to Braverman in 1974, he said that once someone does something over and over again, it leads to the skilling. Therefore, if people are better trained if people are better trained and reinvent themselves, they would have chances of getting new jobs and being relevant in the job market. Also, this would lead to job security. And also, in Marx's theory of alienation, he said that when someone does something over and over again, the person becomes a cog. Therefore, if someone reinvents himself and tries to acquire more knowledge or new ways of, or more skills or knowledge on how to do jobs, it helps the person to be relevant in the job market. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambrose. So next up, we're looking at identities and identities at work. So firstly, we want to look at the composition of the panelists. And as Ambrose mentioned earlier, there's a certain diversity there, because the panelists contain, we have editor-in-chief of Yahoo Finance, we have 3 professors, academia, and then we have CVK, who is CEO of HCL. So here, it brings about a misrepresentation of the workforce that they speak of. So looking specifically at the CEO of HCL, for instance, from our research, according to reviews from Glassdoor and Indeed, we have a certain, the employees complain about a certain lack of job security in the company and competitive salary. So basically what we're trying to say is this self-categorization theory by Hogg and Terry is represented here, because the workforce has, the panelists have tried to transform, or rather showcase themselves as the workforce that they speak of. And another example of that is Trump's empathy for male workers, which basically he did again, which falls under self-categorization. Next up, we have subjectivation of workers through the work they do, the race, gender, and class. Again, here we can call on Trump, because he had a certain support from white traditional Americans, especially after the black president. And speaking of that, also Obama himself can fall under this subjectivation, because he also had a full black support. And lastly, under that, we have gender discrimination in employment and salary, because generally females earn less than males for the same work they do at the same time period. And the Guardian actually says that 80% of UK companies pay 9.7% less to females than they do to males, which all fall under these theories that we speak of and we agree with. So next we have we're looking at core identity, which is part of the identity formulation of Ashworth. So what basically this entails is how the workers identify themselves as workers. And the panelists actually discussed a project they had in Louisiana, whereby the workers identified themselves wholly as workers, and whereby it was a certain source of essence and meaning for them waking up and going to work. And it's so they had such a strong feeling about it that they actually attached a sort of morality to it, whereby it was somewhat shameful if a person did not work. And also under this, we actually had one of them mentioning that they would prefer if the graves of fallen American soldiers overseas were brought back home in order to make room for jobs for people, either in making the graves or mowing the lawns, for instance. And another point of extremism that they had was the was the looking down with disgust, basically, at people that were collecting Obama funds, which were given to the unemployed. So this kind of radicalist behavior is our critique of this identity formulation. So thank you.
Now moving on to the management and ideology aspect of this presentation. One of the panelists was of the view that Trump's projection of the theory of the ideology of the American dream actually influenced people's decisions in the American election. And now this panelist was of the view that this ideology, as well as it is, still has an influence in the lives of a lot of Americans. Now, contrary to her projection of this ideology, as a group we take the view that the American dream ideology is not one that really reflects a true reality of mankind. Now, what the American dream basically talks about is the right to freedom, to own property, and also to create wealth. Now, the downside of this theory is the fact that ideology is the fact that it disregards the reality we state that in order to possess or acquire property and wealth, we live in a competitive world where resources are scarce. Now, people who are so much engrossed in this ideology tend to think that ownership of property or possessing wealth is more of something like a birthright or something like an entitlement, without facing the reality of life, which says we should compete to get all these things. So now, this ideology is therefore flawed because it makes people think radically, and people see competitors as people who are just stepping in the way or acting as obstacles to their birthrights. Also, the panel spoke about the modern day ideology, which projects working hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They sought to suggest that now the world is sad that everybody wakes up in the morning and they have times we they work, times we they close. Now, in agreement with the panel and based on our research, this ideology can be grouped under an ideology called the unitarist ideology. Now, according to Gare, he described the unitarist ideology as an industrial ideology which takes note of a managerial and bureaucratic authority which makes decisions about the lives of their subordinates and how work should be done in society or an organization. Okay. In addition, the panel unanimously points out that the movement or the transition from the industrial to post-industrial era brings the need for continuous education to be able to stay relevant in the job market. Now, this ideology being projected by the panel is one ideology or a common ideology known as individualism. Now, individualism suggests that in order to succeed in life, it all depends on how a human being or an individual struggles on his own. And once you go through these struggles and you succeed with it, in a meritocratic society, you are likely to get whatever you deserve from your struggles. Now, as a group, we are of the view that this common ideology of individualism and meritocracy is not always a reality in our society. Now, according to a research conducted by Resolution Foundation in 2018, blacks and other ethnic minorities in the UK are paid £3.2 billion less than their white counterparts for doing the same jobs. Now, this situation therefore flaws this ideology because meritocracy doesn't always exist in society. And even though, based on our research, people like blacks and other ethnic minorities have the same qualification as their other counterparts, they are still being paid less. Finally, a panelist makes mention of an ideology of meaning and seeks to create the impression that instead of focusing more on ideology of jobs and job security, individuals should start shifting their attention on creating meaning out of the other things they do. Now, to this panelist, jobs include domestic chores like cleaning and taking care of children. Now, our view as a group is that this ideology of meaning is not valid and it's very flawed because in attempts to make meaning out of life, you could call these jobs the panelist is talking about responsibilities, and they shouldn't be regarded as work. Now, work, in our view, is something which pays, and for the panelists to project the idea that the focus should be more on meaning instead of job security is not right because people work to survive and cater for their immediate family and other relatives. Now, if you engage or focus more on the ideology of meaning, you may end up doing jobs which do not pay and you'll not be able to cater for your needs and that of your family. Thank you very much. Woo!
I'm here to talking about conclusion on our work. So the panel are talking about what is the work of nation. So the work of nation is changing throughout the history. So now the first point is about my conclusion is AI and lack of skills require self-reinvention as a solution. So technology and lack of skills are reason for losing the job nowadays. So solution is continuously learning and reinvent yourself. So and make people to do work better and faster, so they can stay long in the job market. So the second point is panel and our group are agreeing that there will be a net gain in the job consideration, the advantages of outsourcing. So the one of the panelists CVK said that outsourcing create more and more jobs in the future. So according to my research as well, there is a nowadays company are majority of their function they are giving to outsourcing for the work at a low price, so they can make more profit at a low cost. So this is the better way for outsourcing, creating more and more jobs in the future. Like 1.8 billion jobs are creating in South Africa, around say 1.2 million outsourcing job creating in India nowadays. There is a third point is there is a still exists a gender pay gap in the modern work environment. So in nowadays in UK, like you can say panelists say that the pay rate for pay gap in for male and for female is different now in environment. The next point is identity formulation plays a key role in commitment to the work. And the last point is human behavior is manipulated by the understanding of ideology. The universal ideology is say that like in history, the people have to be ready at 8 o'clock to start that work, and they are finishing at 5 o'clock. So this is the routine of the every day they are doing. But now their management is making some changes for that. So now the flexi hours take over. So this this thing, so you can work anytime at anywhere, so you can get more skills to do that things. So here is my conclusion part. Thank you so much.